Kenneth Montague is one of Toronto's most influential art collectors. He's a frequent juror on international biennials like Bamako Encounters in Mali, Africa. He has served on the Tate Gallery's Africa Acquisitions Committee, and he is chair of the Art Gallery of Ontario's Education and Community Engagement Committee. He also runs Wedge Curatorial Projects, which organizes exhibitions on contemporary African diasporic art. What I find so striking about what you do is A, your passion, and also how, I mean, as a dentist, you've started Wedge Curatorial Projects and you have this incredible collection, and you somehow managed to bring all three together in some sort of unusual ways.
Well, I don't know if it's so together all the time, but certainly the dental office presents an opportunity as a physical space to showcase artwork from my Wedge collection.
What do you think the impact of that is going to be?
I'm hoping that, moving forward, I won't be the only Black collector I always meet at these art fairs and so forth. In the particular world that I'm in around contemporary African art, we need more collectors and more gallery directors and more curators and more scholars and academics.
Although he also collects painting and Canadian work addressing the environment, Kenneth's main focus is on photography. But you were saying that these are pieces that you may turn into a larger exhibit at some point. Are these from earlier on in your collecting life?
Yeah, these works are some of them from the 1990s when I started collecting around 97. I remember bringing Seydou Keita's work to Toronto. It's one of our first Wedge gallery shows.
Was that the first time Seydou Keita had come to, his work had come to Canada? Or?
I remember calling Seydou Keita in his photo studio as an older man, in Bamako, Mali, and hey, we want to do this show in Canada. And then him referring me to a printer in Paris and how many photos do you want? And I had to buy 10 of them and then had to sell a bunch to pay them off. So this is showing a moment in the history of his country in Mali, where it was moving from the French Sudan, a sort of a colonial place, to African rule, to its own nation.
This is a JAMEL SHABAZZ piece. These guys are looking really fantastic.
Oh, yeah. JAMEL gave that as a gift and asked me, do you know which guys are Jamaican and which are American? And I immediately knew the Jamaican guys were the ones with the hats like that. All of a sudden the Americans were the cap and the Cazal glasses. It's
really?
Yeah, just for me, I knew the look is so much closer to, look of my cousins in Jamaica.
In 2008, Kenneth curated an exhibition in Toronto called Headroom.
The work in the show was coming out of my collection, and I decided to pull everything into the mix. So I did this as a exhibition that was at Museum of Contemporary Canadian Art. It was at MOCA. That work is just a sign from a barber shop in Togo. And I like how it sort of resonates with the chrysophily watercolor above it. And he gets up every morning and as a sort of a painter's exercise, just kind of quickly paints one of these Afro muses, as he calls them. And this is a couple, and I like his signature style with watercolor. That's sort of got a little bit of comic book stuff to it, a little hip hop and a little bit traditional. It's great work.
Yeah, it's a great work.
Yeah, and then above it you see a photograph of MICKALENE Thomas by MICKALENE Thomas. She's doing a self-portrait where she is kind of referencing blaxploitation films, and she's also referencing the Seydou Keita and that kind of use of fabric and the different textiles, and also referencing the classic obelisk, and the woman lying back in that contrapostal position and like a Egyptian queen.
Okay, Kenneth, can you tell us a little bit about this piece here? It looks like some mug shots.
I think that one was bought at a flea market, maybe the Brooklyn Flea. This was quite a find. This is, as it turns out, some images of prisoners from the Texas prison system. And the cool thing about it was that, on top of the hairstyles, the works came with their original slips of identification that I kind of had the people at Superframe put on the back. So you can actually see the names of these individuals. And I think that, for me as a collector of a lot of anonymous photographs and individuals, whenever possible, I'm trying hard to kind of personalize the work and think about the real people in the photographs by naming them.
The thing you may not know about Kenneth is that growing up in Windsor, Ontario with Jamaican heritage, he was profoundly struck by the difference between Black culture in Canada and that across the river in Detroit.
One of the very strong memories for me was being a little guy with my sister sitting in front of the House of Beauty in Detroit, which was kind of across the street from Motown Records. So as a little 5, 6-year-old, I used to watch a young Michael Jackson and a young Diana Ross come out of a limousine, and she had these white gloves on looking impossibly sophisticated, and I just thought, wow, this is not what I'm seeing on television in terms of portrayals of African American culture. It was like, you know, I'm growing up in an era watching Sanford and Son and, you know, the Jeffersons, and I'm seeing like people living like this, and the incredible music scene in Detroit really affected. So it was fascinating for me to kind of be the only Black guy in the class in Windsor and then go across the river on a weekend and just feel a part of a community in some ways. In other ways, be completely aside from that community. I didn't have the same accent. I didn't have the same history. My parents coming from Jamaica. So it was a really interesting kind of duality that remains a part of who I am and the artwork that I collect.
What sets Kenneth apart is not just his wonderful collection, but the way that he brings together different aspects of collecting. He's international, he supports local artists, he curates exhibitions, and he encourages interest in art by displaying it in his dental office.